Reporting.
Great. I'd like to call this meeting of the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee to order. We are meeting virtually as per the executive order, which was an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency by Governor Baker, which allows us to meet virtually. This meeting is being recorded as well as it is being live streamed to the audience. That link has been provided out to the public so that if anyone wanted to view the meeting live, they could do so. So the meeting's been called to order. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I didn't think does anybody have a flag handy? Otherwise we can just, let's see, anybody?
Go north.
No, let's stand and face the flag that you have closest to you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
of the
United
States of America,
States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
liberty,
liberty,
and
justice for all.
for all.
Thank you. All right. So we'll get down to it. I will announce who is on the call for the record. For the school committee, we have Ms. Jennifer Smith, Ms. Heather Nemjura. Did I get that? Okay. Mr. Jeff Marks, Mr. Hank Mason, and myself, Ms. Margaret Hughes. Dr. Kazavant, our superintendent, Kate Cleese, our assistant superintendent, Amory Geister, our business manager, Susan Barney, our admin, executive admin assistant, and Lisa Parker from the NDEA is with us as well. First off, we've got 2 sets of minutes to approve, so we'll take them individually. They were sent out earlier, I believe, mid last week, earlier this week. I don't even know what day it is. For review, so I would entertain a motion for approving the meeting minutes of November 16th, 2021.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second by Mr. Mason. Sorry about that. Any questions, comments, or concerns on the minutes? Just as a reminder, because we haven't done a remote meeting in quite some time, we do need to do a roll call vote. And I like to always do it in the order people logged in. So how do you vote, Mrs. Smith?
Aye.
Mrs. Nemchura?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
If you have a quorum without me, I will abstain. I wasn't
May
here,
difference.
Yeah. So I'm going to abstain. I know I could vote on it, but I'll abstain, okay?
Yep, it's a simple majority of who's here for this particular vote. Mr. Mason?
Aye.
And Mrs. Hughes says aye, so it does pass. Approval, so that did pass, not unanimously. We had Mr. Marks who abstained. I would entertain a motion for the approval of the meeting minutes of December 1st, 2021.
So moved.
And I have a motion from Mr. Marks. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second from Ms. Nemchura. Get better at it, I think. Of course, I'm writing down this and I'm putting Heather because it's just shorter. Any questions, comments, or concerns on the minutes of December 1st? So we'll do a roll call vote. Mrs. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Nemchura?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Yeah.
Mr. Mason?
Aye.
And Mrs. Hughes says yes, so that was unanimous. And thank you, Mrs. Varney, for putting those together and getting them out to everybody. Attached are the bills and payroll that I believe that we still have one that needs a signature. We had an issue with just getting a signature, so we will follow up with that. Ms. Geister, I'm sure you'll reach out to someone who can get that signed. But I would entertain a recommendation to accept the bills and payroll warrants as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Mason. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second by Mr. Marks. Any questions or comments or concerns? Roll call, Mrs. Smith?
Aye.
Mrs. Nemchura?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
Mr. Mason?
Aye.
And Mrs. Hughes says yes, so that was unanimous. Okay. We don't have a student rep tonight. We did get contacted. Unfortunately, they both had conflicts for this evening. So we'll work on making sure that they can get to us at our next meeting. Unfortunately, just some things came up, but they did reach out to let us know they wouldn't be here. I will ask that if they can't be here in person, that hopefully maybe they can send a report in to read so we can share some information. So we'll look to do that if they can't resolve some of the conflicts that have come up. Public input. Ms. Varney, have you seen anything come in for public input? Normally people would email when we do virtual meetings.
No, I just checked and there's nothing for tonight.
Okay, so we'll move on from public input. NDEA, we have Mrs. Parker with us tonight. If you'd like to say a few words about what's going on and anything we should be aware of.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I've had some audio issues, so I thought I was troubleshooting it today, so I'm glad I was able to fix it. No, just right now, everybody's been, report cards have gone out in the elementary school, middle school. They had parent-teacher conferences, middle and elementary schools that went very well. I know the high school also did conferences. And I haven't heard about how those all went, but it seemed like parents were in good attendance at the other levels. And now we are just, everybody's doing assessments and things like that they need to do before the winter break. And I think the kids are beginning to look forward to that. The natives are restless, getting ready to have a little bit of time off, but everybody's still working hard and trying to keep things on track and keeping learning happening every day. So things are looking good on the home front.
Great, thank you. That's good to hear. I think everybody's looking forward to the break. And just, I'm going to say this so the public hears, our last day before the break is Wednesday, the 22nd? And it's a half day, I believe. So it's a Wednesday. So that's when our break starts. And then we come back on January 2nd, 3rd, I believe it is the Monday. So we'll be back on the Monday. So we have a cat. All right, thank you for the update. FY22 budget update. There was some, I don't think there's anything too exciting out in the legislative front at this point for FY22, but I'll turn it over to Dr. Casavan, Ms. Geister for any updates on 22, ESSER funds, and a little bit of FY23 if you want to throw that in, because I know our next meeting will focus more on the budget for FY23.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that, well, nothing legislatively, I can tell you that, but I know that maybe Anne Marie has, I don't know that we spoke about the money we received from the state, Anne Marie, for to offset costs for the summer program. I think that would be the only.
Well, I'll talk about that under the grants.
All right.
We can just tell you that E&D has been submitted to DOR and they are working on taxes. And he said probably sometime in January, we would be able to get our number.
Great. Thank you. And as I said, we'll get into the FY23 budget at our next meeting, which will focus primarily on the budget. And I will just give an update that the Finance Subcommittee did meet last night. So a lot of that will be shared at our upcoming meeting in January. So next up, Anne Marie, we'll go back to you for the Business Manager's Report.
Okay, I just want to point out, like under the grant section at our last meeting, you had asked if there was a way that we could sort of show that the grants aren't really in the red. So I actually added a line at the bottom that shows the monthly request amount that I made, which I think that takes care of all the pieces that are in the red. It's just really a timing issue why they show that. So I think that that's takes care of that piece there. Also on the grants, we have received a couple new ones. There is a reimbursement grant that we received. It's $63,000. Basically, we had to figure out what we spent on our summer program that was not already covered by the summer grant that we got, and some of our ESSER funds went towards our summer program. So I worked with Mr. Holloway and we came up with that $63,000 of expenses, and it's a reimbursement. So as soon as they submit the initial payment to us, they have requested that we submit our paperwork to get the rest of the money, and it will just reimburse for those expenses that we use to cover that program.
Mhm.
The other one is our regionalization grant that Dr. Casavant wrote. That one actually, it's all set. We're just waiting for the first payment to come, and we're waiting to get our bids in for our consultant. I think actually there was 3 of them. Yeah, we have the nursing workforce grant, which is $100,000, which that has been approved. And again, we are waiting on our payment for that as well. And that is going to cover basically a resource nurse, which is sort of like a permanent sub nurse. So when someone's out, we have the extra help already.
Mhm.
That grant is for 2 years. So we will have that for this year and next year.
Great. Is it, you said it's 100,000, so is it 50,000 each year?
No, it's 100,000 each year.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it, according to Mariah Zwicker, our nurse leader, it came about because of COVID and all of the extra that the nurses have had to do. So the state has offered this to the recipients who received their other community health nursing grant. So this is an addition. Everyone who qualified for the other one that we've had for the past 3 years was able to qualify to apply for this one. I don't know if everyone got it that applied, but we did. And basically it's to assist the nursing team with all the COVID related duties.
That's great. We certainly have a need for it. So that was a great place to receive some grant monies.
Madam Chair, if I may, I would also just, this is a great example of how grants build on grants. So the initial nurse enhancement grant that actually John Solivatos wrote back when, which was an exceptionally competitive grant. Some people who had the grant did not. We were one of only, I think, 8 districts in the state that were new. So, once you're committed, and you're doing good work, which certainly our nursing team is doing incredible work, it begets money. Money begets money. These grants start to become more available because they know the work, the commitment that you're putting towards it. So I just want to make sure this is why we work so hard to write grants, and Ms. Cleese can certainly talk about that with Project Lead the Way, et cetera. Those type of grants have a way of building upon themselves. So.
Great news. Thank you.
One other thing, this isn't really business manager reports, but I wanted to bring up our rate schedule for our facility use. I've attached it to the agenda so that you could see. I'll just kind of quickly go over a few of the things that I would like to recommend that we change. Basically, the reason for this is our current rates were, I think they were 5 or 6 years old, and with increasing salaries of our custodial staff, a lot of the rates we were charging don't cover those overtime rates anymore when we have the events on the weekends. So this basically just increases the custodial rates so that we are actually breaking even. One new item that we added is an energy surcharge, which would be $50 minimum for 3 hours and then $25 for each additional hour. We looked at a few different schools and how they did their things. And so it never dawned on me that every time we are opening up our building, our lights are on. So this was just a little thing that we thought might be a good addition to what we did. We didn't raise any of the rental rates, just the labor rates for the lighting and sound. When we have something in the auditorium, the technology, and then basically the custodial fees is really the big increase there. And it's going from $30 to $45 an hour.
I do want to note that this item actually is one of those that falls, let's see, I want to read the title is within an item that fell within that 48-hour time frame that we didn't have knowledge of. So I just want to explain that since it was not exactly on the agenda. This is other items not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours before the meeting. Last night, Ms. Geister presented this information to the Finance Subcommittee to review, who said, yes, this list looks good. Let's recommend this to the full committee. So this is really falling under that 48-hour timeline agenda item, but we're presenting it here because it just makes sense since this is Ms. Geister's agenda item. So does anybody have any questions for Anne Marie at this point on these changes? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the new facilities rate schedule effective January 1st, 2022, as presented on the sheet that we have in front of us from Ms. Geister and as she so kindly described.
So moved.
I have a motion. I'll go with Mr. Mason. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Second.
I'll go with Mr. Marks that time. I'll get back to you, Mrs. Smith, next time. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, we'll do roll call. I just, for the record, also want to note that Mrs. Matson has joined us. I believe at 5:42 is when I saw her pop on the screen. So hello, Lori. I'm glad you could join us. So we'll do roll call. Mrs. Smith,
Aye.
Mrs. Mjura,
Aye.
Mr. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Mason,
Aye.
Mrs. Matson,
Aye.
and Mrs. Hughes says yes. So that was unanimous. So we'll get those implemented January of 2022. And Anne Marie, I know your group will do whatever you need to make sure that the people are alerted and it's posted and whatever else needs to happen so that people are informed of the rate change.
Yep, thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right. Sorry, my cat is destroying something. So if you hear some noises. Next up on the agenda is superintendent goal setting. I wanted to give an update based on where we were last time. We had discussed having the academic administrative subcommittee meet with Dr. Casavant and Ms. Calise to go over some of the survey information that we had done on which indicators the school committee felt were important. We did that. So they have that information back and they're currently reviewing it and are going to try to align the indicators with the goals, as well as give us some examples of evidence that they feel work for all of the goals and the indicators and what's important. And then we can review that and then add to it, ask questions. So that'll be upcoming at our either our next meeting or the one after. We'll see what our agendas look like. I know we want to really do finance at the next meeting, so it may be mid-January, but that is where we are. I don't know if Dr. Casavant, you wanted to add anything to that? Okay.
No, Madam Chair, I think that, we're all set now. I think we'll be all set for the next meeting.
Great. Okay, update on logo. I have not seen any legislative movement. Dr. Casavant or Mr. Marks, if you want to add anything on where we might be and what we're looking to do in timeframes.
I will just simply add that that we, again, I want to go back for those who may be watching or just kind of tuning into all this, that we hit a pause during this, it was during the summer months really, and the work of the DEI committee had gone to a certain point about keeping Warrior, the name Warrior, and looking for some type of suitable logo for that. They worked with Mount Wachusett Community College. They got they worked on some very rough drafts, presented we presented them, talked about it, then again we paused. So ultimately the board took a vote, I think I want to say in August or September, and to move forward with keeping Warrior. We took the work that had, as planned, we took the work that was done by the DEI committee and worked with BOCES, a company that we contacted months and months ago, and they ultimately I don't know how many total renditions. There was a lot, you know, whether it be an N, a tricolor N, a dual color N, Warriors helmets, you know, it was a lot. It was a lot. So we in essence turned that over to Mr. Marks and his committee, and so that is as far as I'm concerned. I don't know much further than that, but there are some things to at least initially, you know, first brush to consider.
Thank you, Chris. And Chris did, and I appreciate Chris sending that along to us. And I'll have an update later on the DEI committee. But we did we did meet earlier this month. We reviewed that information. Along with that, we were also sent some information about a new marketing and design group who was doing some stuff, some work with some additional districts. With mascot rebranding. They've worked with Neshoba, Athol, North Brookfield, and Taconic. So we actually reached out to them. I only got an email back earlier this week, and they're looking to set something up. So I will set that up. We'll see if we, you know, get anything else. I think, you know, we have a good start, but we'll continue working with them, and I hope to have an update for this group in January. Okay, we'll see how that goes.
Great. Excellent, thank you. Okay. School committee comments. Do we have any comments from the school committee at this time?
I have a PTO update.
Perfect.
We've been working very hard to try to come up with, you know, some kind of a family activity after school. And we sent home flyers last week, and everything's so far a go for us to bring back our polar shop, which was an element of our breakfast with Santa over the previous years. But we really wanted to pare it down, pick one thing to do so as not to be overwhelmed. And to be honest, my list of volunteers changes from day to day. Like, I have a great number of volunteers, and then I get a call that some of them are excluded because of being close contacts or unfortunately also getting sick. So, you know, I'm glad that we are keeping it smaller and trying to do something reasonable. The Polar Shop's an opportunity for our elementary students to come shop with some of us while their parents are secluded away. Gives them a chance to, you know, for the items are $1 each. We can shop with them in a safe manner, help them wrap, and then bring them back out to their parents. It is this Friday and Saturday so that we could split and not have a huge crowd from 4 to 6 over at TES. And there's no cost for entry. The students do pay $1 per item. And, you know, I do have some families who have let me know that they might need a little assistance with that, and we're taking care of them. And interestingly, I even have a couple of families whose children who are unfortunately in isolation until well after this event. And they are going to be doing a virtual shop with me. And I'm going to do a sort of a door drop off with a 10-foot pole to drop the items off for their children so that their children can still participate. But again, that is this Friday and Saturday. Everyone's welcome, especially if they want to volunteer. So that's our big item. Hopefully everything goes off well.
Thank you and good luck. And get those volunteers and anyone listening, anyone here on the committee, I'm sure they'll track you down. So thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? I'll do a plug for our athletic program. From what I know, we are live streaming on our athletic YouTube channel, the basketball games. I have also just heard that our track meets will also be live streamed. We don't host our own track meets. They're hosted either at Fitchburg, Wachusett, and I think we have one in Shrewsbury. And I was just told that it appears that they'll be live streaming available in those 3 venues, but more to come on that. It was, we're really hopeful. It sounds like they're committed to it. So I don't know what it'll look like because track meets have so many things going on, but that's good news. What we've also heard for the indoor track meets that there will be no spectators at the track meets. We are allowing, from what I understand at this point, the spectators at our basketball games. So assuming things don't change, that is the plan. And I will say, just because I know people are wondering, well, why not at track meets? I think it has a lot to do with the fact that track meets, you could have 10 schools together. And if something happens, you're impacting a really large body of potential students in 10 or plus different schools. So it kind of makes sense to me. And I also want to give a plug to the girls track team. There's some invitational meets. We've already have several girls on our winter track team that have already qualified for states. It was the first meet down at Reggie Lewis, and we've just had some great performances. So congratulations to them. And I know there's many more coming up, different, there's a speed race, and there's, I don't know, a whole bunch of different things. So lots of good things going on in the athletic front. I'm hoping that maybe we can get some feedback on clubs and stuff too, what's going on. And I believe that we have intramurals going on for the middle school, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if we've kicked those off for a winter season. So I know there's a lot of things going on. So Dr. Kazavan, if you want to give any update as well.
I will, well, I certainly can. I know that the student reps were planning or were charged to do that. So I don't want to steal their thunder, but I will tell you that I watched a very exciting mat ball game yesterday. It was 2 days ago, but today's Wednesday, so yesterday. It was tight. It was tight, and I'll tell you right now, right down to the last play. So it's good to hear they're in full effect. They look a little bit different, but it's neat to see, quite frankly, kids in the building kind of doing things that they've, that we used to do before. So
great, excellent. Anyone else have any comments for us from the school committee? Okay, seeing none. I don't believe we have any surplus items, right? There was none there. I didn't miss that. So we'll pass over that item. And we do have one order of new business, which is the appointment of a high school nurse. By law, the school committee is charged with appointing the nurse upon the superintendent's recommendation. So I will make the motion, and then Dr. Kazavan, if you want to add any information about the nurse after we make the motion, and then we can go through it. But I would entertain a motion to approve, upon recommendation of the superintendent, the appointment of Jennifer Nolan as the high school nurse. You're muted, Hank.
So moved.
Okay, so that was Mr. Mason. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from, I think it was Mr. Marks. I heard someone else and I didn't see the lips move. I'm sorry. Anyway, Dr. Kazan, if you want to give us a little more information.
absolutely. So it seems like a very long time ago that we were really struggling with all the things that needed to take place in terms of COVID, the testing, and just a lot of things. And our nursing staff was just really, really stressed to the breaking point. And through a lot of hard work and organization, and just really, working with other agencies and gaining some extra staff that came to no cost, of course, to the district, we started to turn a corner. And then ultimately we had a beloved long-term nurse, have a great opportunity offered and left. And so we were very worried, quite frankly, to find a nurse, school nurse, to be able to fill those shoes. And so we were very lucky to have Miss Nolan, who is a Templeton resident. I know that she has children in the district to apply, and she was ultimately hired. And matter of fact, we spoke about her today at our admin meeting, and she is really doing a fantastic job. She brings a lot of experience from other jobs, and she has fit in very, very well, and quite frankly hasn't missed a beat. And we're still, if I don't have it right here, I could pull it up, but the numbers of test and stays and et cetera still have, matter of fact, they're going up a little bit, but She just hopped right in and has been a great addition. So I recommend her, Ms. Nolan, with every ounce of, of enthusiasm.
Great. So the motion on the floor was to approve the appointment with the recommendation of the superintendent, which we have now heard. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Dr. Casavant or anyone else? Seeing none, we will do a roll call vote. Mrs. Smith? Oop, you're on mute.
Aye.
Mrs. Nimchura?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Yes.
Mr. Mason?
Aye.
Mrs. Matson?
Aye.
And Mrs. Hughes says yes, so that was unanimous. So we want to welcome Nurse Nolan to the district and let her know that we appreciate her, coming on board. I know how difficult it's been, as you mentioned, to try and find nurses. So it's wonderful that we have someone local and in the community even that has stepped up to take the position. So that's great. Next up was anything else not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours before the meeting. We did handle that one item with Ms. Geister's agenda item. There was nothing else that I know of that has come up. So we will move on, and I will turn the floor over to Dr. Casavant for superintendent report, as well as enrollment and anything else he would like to share with us. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to start with enrollment because I have it queued up, and we'll see if I can share. And usually it doesn't go well, but let's see. Let's see if I've learned, if I've forgotten anything here. So, oh yeah, of course it's not there. Well, what I can report is that we've of course settled right in. Quite frankly, we've the pluses and minuses, so to speak, have really leveled off, and that is a very normal thing. And I do have it here. It just won't share appropriately. I don't want to waste the time with it, but we have a district total of 1414. And just looking at the general numbers, we have 1,046 Templeton residents, 181 Phillipston residents, and 187 school choice. So, ultimately, we're give or take 20 or so. People have heard me say 1436, 1436, 1436 over the years, and give or take. We're right where we normally would be. We still have some folks who are school choice, homeschooled due to a variety of reasons. So we are, give or take, right where we should be. So that's great. So there has been no mass exodus or mass entry into the district, so which is always good this time of year because we're really kind of in the swing of things. Any questions about that before I want to make sure I don't? Okay. So the other type of thing, really quick, attended the middle school and high school music concert last night. I was sure that someone here would steal my thunder and I would just have to cross it off my list. But I'm happy to say that I get to talk about that. It was great. They sounded excellent. They were excited. It's really neat to see kids all excited to present or to perform, I should say. COVID took its toll. We're very open about these type of things. Our poor trumpet section, a few of our singers, they sounded great. And it was just really great to see a bunch of folks, the parents and grandparents there to hear their kids sing or play musical instruments. It was awesome. And then we had a surprise, entry from the band that came in down the aisles, which is always a big hit. To COVID, quite frankly, it certainly isn't a secret. Neighboring district had to go full remote, or at least its high school did. And I spoke with that superintendent during last couple of days, and they did everything exactly correct. It's just a matter of a lot of kids just again came in contact with each other, and but the high school will be full remote. I think people are it's interesting because people kind of look at me surprised when I say that. I will say, I guess, in defense of the state has always said that that was an option, but there were many things that one would have to do before they could just go into it, maybe on their own. Obviously, we all remember that last year, really, we made the decision based on our local numbers and speaking with our with our health team. But it's different now. You do need to call the state and really kind of work things through. They want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can do that's possible to keep kids in school, and that's really pressure from the feds. And we talked about that a little bit today through our commissioners meeting. That is there is a very, very prescribed path in which one needs to take before these things are considered, and everything from, are you doing the testing that we've, that has been offered out, our Narragansett is. And from there, they would go into, can you quarantine just a classroom? Can you quarantine? So they run you through a pretty rigorous step process. And with that said, I mean, today, again, was our reporting day to the state, and we had the single highest, I believe, was the single highest count for the week. It was 25 total. It's we've posted to the portal. I will be putting all the information up tonight for it to be for public dissemination. But ultimately, no staff positives. Obviously, all student, and they pretty equal across the board. So we're seeing an uptick. This is not something that we are surprised. We've talked about it. We know that it's coming. We know that it was coming. People are indoors. It's cold. The holidays. Last year, our largest spike was in February. Quite frankly, we expect the same thing. What we hope is that our spike is not so high, right? So it's limited. But we are ready as we can possibly be. And we'll keep plugging away. So I think the district's in good position in regards to what we do to try to keep everyone safe. I'll stop there because I don't know if there are any questions about COVID. No. Okay. So the other things is that the group that is going to be part of the negotiation team for the NDEA. I sent an email out a little bit ago. I can't honestly remember when. We need to decide a date to speak with the person that will be facilitating that process. It will, so if folks could just check their emails and get back to me a date so I can relay that to them, because he wants to have it's going to be virtual. At least for the foreseeable future. So I think he just probably wants to go through those type of steps. So there's that. We would like to form, and I realize this would be a subcommittee of the school committee, but the insurance, is it the insurance subcommittee, Anne Marie? I just want to make sure I call it the right thing, quite frankly.
I believe it's called the Insurance Advisory Committee.
Advisory, thank you. So the Insurance Advisory Committee, we sent out feelers for the appropriate the union representation, et cetera. And I do have those names. We have not formed this advisory committee, at least in my tenure here, and we'd like to do that just so to do any type of inquiry, we would need to form that advisory committee, and of course, with your blessing through the school committee, we would do that. We would of course love to have and need a member of the school committee to be on that advisory committee, and it's my recommendation. And certainly, I think we could take this up at the next meeting, Madam Chair. But in talking with other districts, you can in fact find a retiree representative, and that's completely acceptable, of course, or someone from the school committee can represent that subgroup or group. And so if there are anyone that you might think that would like to be a part of that committee from the school committee standpoint, or maybe someone who has retired, we'll reach out through the NDEA, but I just want to know that that's really the last person that we would need to secure in order to have that. So it would be my hope that the next meeting that we would iron out those wrinkles and then appoint those advisory members so we can do our due diligence and look at what we can do in terms of insurance.
Okay, that sounds good. We can talk about. I'll circle back with the school committee and see if we have a volunteer or someone who will be volunteered to serve on the advisory committee, because it'll be an advisory committee to the school committee. And I think we may have some retirees out there who
Sure.
maybe might be interested, and I'm sure we can work with Ms. Parker and Mr. Ivan and try and find someone who's willing to give some time to represent that group. So that's good.
And that'd be fair. And so if Lisa, if you maybe we could, we're talking tomorrow anyway as part of our our normal weekly chat, so I'll throw that on our agenda just so that way you could reach out through, and so we can present those names to the committee for their consideration. I think that we debated talking about this subject, but because it's such a long it could be a long conversation, but around the holidays, any of us who've been in education and behaviors spike. It does not matter if it is during or recovery of a pandemic or of the best of times. We see a lot of dysregulation around really November and December, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Sometimes the holidays are not joyful, quite frankly. We have several, we have many children whom this is not a joyous time of the year. And that's the, the sad, just reality of that. And that has been a reality since really school has been school, quite frankly. We know that given our current situation with coming out of COVID, that we anticipated, and so did the state and federal government, if you really do carry it further back, that there was going to be a lot of recovery needed. I think that we certainly talked a lot about the social emotional component of it. In the academic component, and this committee certainly was, a big part of taking up the ESSER 3 monies, for example, and ESSER 2, but and looking at what we could provide our kids. It still, though, has been very busy, to use a word, and everyone is just really, it's people are tired, and by the way, humans are tired at this point in time, parents and kids and teachers, and not the superintendent. I'm not tired at all. I feel great. It's been, no, that's not true, but poor Susan, she's exhausted because she has to deal with the superintendent. But the fact of the matter is that we have had behaviors, and we have seen a spike in behaviors, and we are working through that. We work through that in very different ways, because every child is an individual. Their needs are different. The response to behaviors are different, and we need to. I think that we'll be talking about behaviors more, quite frankly, and what is the response to some behaviors, and what does it look like, say, if you're in the elementary, if you're 8 or 7, and what does it look like when you're 17? Behavior is behavior, but the effect of that, depending on the severity, intensity, and duration, to go back into the behavioral days, does matter. And so we're gonna, as we do here, we're going to unpack that. We're not going to hide behind it. Certainly we have to be sensitive, and will be very sensitive confidentiality wise, students, et cetera, and staff. But we're going to talk about this more, because I think it's an important topic. And I certainly want to engage not only the school committee, the PTOs, the PAC, our SPED PAC, and teachers and community members, and to talk about it, because it's hard. It's hard for everybody. And so I think that that's something that I certainly just don't want to doorknob, as they say, and kind of leave it hanging. But I think that we'll be talking more about that, and in our responses as a district. Quite frankly, we've put a plan in place 3 years ago, pardon me, Kate. With looking at more, support social emotionally with school psychs and behavioral specialists, et cetera. And we certainly have benefited from that. They're not super people. They're not magicians. Just because they're there, behavior doesn't happen. It gives us a better platform in order to work with kids who may be dysregulated behaviorally. So, with that, I certainly want to, allow any questions that I could possibly answer. But as a tight community, people hear things, and we don't hide anything. But certainly we can't talk about everything, as openly as I think some people would like.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Dr. Casbat? I thank you for bringing up the multiple of the topics, starting with COVID, and I just want to also give a plug to, that I think everybody at this point needs to do their due diligence to try to minimize the spread. We've kind of talked about that piece before as it relates to your COVID report with our numbers going up. So I would like to put a plug in that we just need to be conscious of what we're doing out there. And then the second piece is I just want to thank you for bringing up that there are issues and we're on them. And we look forward to hearing more about it, because I think, as a parent, as a community member, you're right. Things are bantered about out in the community about, oh, did you hear all this stuff? And for confidentiality reasons, we can't speak. And when I say we, that would be we, because the school committee, we don't get involved in that. But I think it's good, we have, and I'm just gonna go back, and you mentioned, 3 years ago, we had this plan in place, and that was part of the strategic plan, that multi-tiered system of support that wasn't just on the academics, but also the social emotional. And I think to myself, how, I'll use a big word, fortuitous, that we did that 3 years ago to be positioned to react to some of this and have some of the resources and some of the plans in place that we need. And now we have to figure out what else might we need going forward. So it can't be easy. And I think you encapsulated it great. This is a tough time of year for everyone.
Yeah.
And, even on the best of days, some people just don't deal with it well. And there's just a lot of things. So thank you for just acknowledging and letting us know that we're working on things, and we look forward to having more discussions as it's fit to do so.
Yeah. And I want to definitely, when we start talking about social emotional, I'll end with this, but when we talk about social emotional anything, we want to make sure that we are considering and adding our teachers and our staff to that. Again, we're not super people. We'd like to think it, we maybe, would like to be, but it's hard work. It really is. This committee has been with me, or I've been with you for a very long time. And I say that, and I know that it may bounce off occasionally when I say how hard the work is. When you're in the business of people, human beings, and you are in charge of their, in a sense, right? Their learning or their behaviors. It is quite honestly probably the most rewarding but most difficult work that could possibly be done. You are talking about 25 human beings. I'm using 25 just as an average class, but those are 25 individual human beings that come from 25 different places, quite frankly. And if you're at the high school, middle school level, you might deal with 100 kids, right? Again, rotating through. It is incredibly difficult, but it's incredibly rewarding. So this isn't, the fact is that our payment comes, tenfold, quite frankly, when things are going well, and we see somebody 10 years down the road right there, Miss Lisa, we were just talking about this a little while ago. You get, once in a great while, you get somebody go, remember me? And they're like 6'8", and I'm like, gosh, I hope so. And I hope if you liked me when you remembered me, but somebody will always just drop a kind word, somebody you had 20 years ago, and it makes up for everything. It does, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make a difference, and we do make a difference. But we have to have the tough conversation as much as we possibly can, because it's hard. And, I think we're positioned well, staff wise, et cetera. But, we're certainly not going to hide behind, the fact that we can't talk, behaviors happen, behaviors are happening, and we'll discuss it as best as we can, because that's what a learning community should do, or at least a caring community. And I'd like to think that we're definitely part of one. So more to come on that, so to speak. But, I think that, we're poised, we're well positioned to have that conversation. So I'm going to end with good news, right? Had a great meeting with town of Templeton, and I spoke with Phillipson a couple of weeks ago about ARPA monies. Templeton will receive its total allotment of 2.1 or $2 million. I forget the number actually, and they're under no obligation to to do anything for the schools, but we have a great working relationship with Templeton. And Phillipson. I spoke with Templeton personally about some of the needs, et cetera, for their consideration. We submitted, as requested, basically a list. If I, to use a lack of a better word, if we were to be considered, from what would we use, and as we discussed last night, certainly the offset, right, ESSER 2 monies that were supposed to be used to offset minimum local contribution, and the state said no, and left everybody kind of in this weird financial position in terms of how we account for that. So there's really a lot more to come with that, but both towns have been contacted. They've been receptive, and we sent the information to both towns, just as an FYI. And Susan, can you remind me, did we get a chance to send it to the school committee as well? I know that we were under the gun.
I have not, but I will do that before the end of this
great.
meeting.
Okay. We have electric sign. We didn't talk about that last time because I don't know why, but we did. We didn't. It's always good to see something come through. Anne Marie is probably like, oh my God, thank God. It seems like 4 years, seems like 100 years we're working on this. And it's up and it's flashing and it's beautiful and we love it. And people are appreciating the messages. And last but not least, I attended the joint board meeting for Templeton. I've attended these before. It was a little bit scaled back, just for a lot of reasons. But I have to tell you that that Mike Curry and Adam Montaigne do an excellent job facilitating that meeting. I learn a lot when I do go to those meetings about some of these committees and what's going on and some of the things that they're up against. And it's always good for me to hear that, because we were able to actually offer out, I think, I don't know where it stands right now, but the senior center needed some volunteers. They need volunteers, period, period. But we have reached out to our seniors to see if seniors in high school, to see if any of them are interested in working, over there, or using they need hours, etc. So I know that the high school is trying to make that happen. And we have our holiday luncheon coming up for the seniors. And I'll let Susan talk about that a little bit, but it was a great end of the week of last week. It was just a great meeting to kind of get on the same page with everyone in the municipality. So it was good.
Great, thank you. And actually, I'm going to, I'll actually go over to Mrs. Varney to talk about the senior luncheon. So let's give that a plug with the details.
Sure thing. So we were happy this year that we're able to bring back our annual senior holiday luncheon. We skipped it last year, so it was kind of a last minute decision, but we're happy to be able to make it work. So far, we have just under, I think, 50 people on the list, Anne Marie, is that right? Around 46 or so. It's going to be a ham and turkey dinner like it typically is. It's going to be on Wednesday, the 22nd. Nope. Yes, Wednesday, the 22nd at noon. It's a half day for students and staff. So we've invited the seniors to come in. We have our band folks that are going to be coming to entertain, our choir people. We have some students from the National Honor Society that will be helping us out with serving, and then some volunteers from central office. So we're expecting it's going to be a great day. We're looking forward to it.
And how can anyone, a senior, reach out to sign up to be involved?
Absolutely. They can call the central office at 939-5661 and speak to any of us there in the office. We have a little running list that we're adding to as people call. So the more the merrier.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
All right. Anything else from the superintendent's report? We're good? Okay. I will turn it over to Ms. Calise. I think you wanted to give us a preview of the learning website, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Do I have the ability to share, Ms. Barney? Okay. All right, so are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to start here just so anybody following along can navigate to this website. So if you are on the main page, go to departments, you can go to learning. There's two ways to navigate here. One is to click this drop-down box and you can go to each page, or you can just go straight to this learning page. And on the page that you land on, you'll get those three sub pages. One is for curriculum, one is for instruction, and one is for assessment. So starting with curriculum, if you click on this title, it'll bring you to a page that has information about our curriculum. And this page, there's a note here that says the curriculum maps will be periodically uploaded and updated. Every map isn't up here yet, but I didn't want to wait until it was entirely populated because, you know, it's a cycle and then you'll be updating other maps and so forth. So what's here right now is what I've been able to get in, and that's growing every day. So if you wanted to know, for example, in 4th grade, what was happening in English language arts, you could click on that curriculum map and it'll walk you through each unit the students are studying, what the standards are, and what the students will know and be able to do as a result of that unit. And then it continues through the different units. So this will be the whole year, in other words. So there might be 5, 6, 7 units at a grade level in English language arts. And so each of these is a link. I'm still working on getting some of these up there. Same idea for mathematics. You could, as a parent, this is the kindergarten unit, and you can see what your child will be studying, and again, what students will know and be able to do at the end of that unit. So that's curriculum. At the top are the curriculum maps, and then if you scroll down, you'll see curricular resources. And what I tried to do here is just put a link to the various series that we use. So people who are curious, you know, what kind of program do we use in reading, you know, for K to 5, it links you to, you know, a little bit about what that particular program is. Similar to the other links here, you know, we have interactive science, we have Gateway. If a parent or anyone was curious about the types of resources we use. So this is a combination of curriculum maps, focusing mostly on English language arts and math as the main subjects. And then of course, over time, we'll add to that. And then back to the learning page, the instruction portion is another page. And this gives both academic learning standards and social emotional learning standards. We talk about social emotional learning a lot, and you know, I'm not sure that people realize there are actually standards that we can follow in order to develop students and all of our understanding of social emotional learning. So starting with the academic standards, parents can click again any grade level, and I'm going to choose 6th grade here, and they'll be brought to a document from the Department of Ed that really walks a parent through, welcome to 6th grade. This is what you can talk to your child about. Here's the main things that students are going to be learning in 6th grade in English, science, history, and math. What are the new expectations for students in 6th grade? What's going to happen by the end of 6th grade? Students should be able to do these things. How, what you can talk to your teacher about. So these are very nice family-centered guides to each academic year, and they're developed by the National PTO and the Department of Ed. So that's on the subpage here of instruction, because all instruction is based on standards. So as I said, the top is academic, and then we have social emotional learning. So we linked, I linked some information here about the 5 social emotional learning competencies. These are really the gold standard of this work is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, which is CASEL. People hear that term CASEL, C-A-S-E-L. And there's a definition of what social emotional learning is, and then a CASEL PowerPoint that you can just pause here and you'll watch it. The slides will scroll through over time, or you can click this arrow here and it'll fill your whole page and you can control how the slides advance. And then still within instruction, we have what are our instructional priorities at Narragansett. And there's a little bit about our learning walkthrough process, what that means. This is a process we use to continually improve student learning in classroom instruction. We have a focus of inquiry, which you can click here and see what that focus of inquiry is. And this is something that we paused because of COVID, but we are making efforts to get back to. So finally, again, under this learning website, we had curriculum, we had instruction, and now we have assessment. And in the assessment category, I really thought that the presentation, essentially a smaller version of the presentation that we did for school committee, that talked about what the tiered systems of support are and how we use data and assessments in order to support our students, was really what was meaningful here. So that's what's linked on this page. So just a quick overview of the learning website that's now live on our main page. I don't know if anyone has any questions for me. I should also point out, and I think I did link it here, that, but I'm going to bring it right up. In the area of mathematics, we really should give kudos to Ms. Parker, who has on the Templeton webpage put extensive mathematics resources as well. I meant to link that to my learning webpage and didn't get to do that. I just realized I showed you something and I wasn't sharing my screen. That's okay.
Great. Anybody have any questions or comments for Ms. Calise? I'll say thank you for putting those resources out there. I know we spend a lot of time talking about those items, and to be able to have a place on our website where we can go out and view the information, see what our kids are doing and learning and what the expectations are is a wonderful resource to have out there for the parents and the community and as school committee members as well. So thank you. It looks like you're off to a great start, and we look to check it out once it's fully populated, and appreciate all of this information out there for us to use. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I do just want to announce, because we are meeting virtually, Mr. Marks did drop off, but he is back. So I will just want to make that announcement for the record. We're into subcommittee reports. I'll run through quickly. Academic administrative, we already did a quick update. We spoke mostly about the superintendent goals and the indicators. So a report was already given as part of discussing the superintendent goals. Finance, we spoke that we will be meeting and focusing on finance at our next meeting. So the finance subcommittee met last night. We've already kind of spoken about the things that we've discussed at the meeting that we will speak more in depth to next meeting that we have. Facilities, I think there's an upcoming meeting for facilities, if I'm not mistaken.
We met earlier this week, Margaret.
Oh, okay. Any updates that you want to share?
Yeah, well, Chris has already brought up the electronic signs. It was kind of stole my thunder, but thanks, Chris. So again, we met earlier this month, basically discussing a lot of the capital improvements, such as the HVAC, the track, potential paving and roofing projects we've been planning and working on for a while. As always, we continue to struggle with funding many of these projects. Although Anne Marie, Chris, Rick, and Keith have done a great job between grants and state funding to keep some of these projects moving forward. In particular, we've done a great deal of work over the past 18 months or so with the HVAC system. Not only is the middle and high school complex more comfortable for our students, our faculty, and our staff, but it's also more energy efficient. Let's see, which is always a great thing. As Chris also spoke, they're now working on with the member towns to submit some additional funding requests for some of our higher priority projects. Fingers crossed that we get some of that work. And you know, if there's a lot going on in facilities, if there's no questions, we'll leave it at that. Okay, unless Chris or Anne Marie or Hank, you have something else you want to add to that. Looks like we're good.
We're good.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone have any questions for Jeff at this point? No, I think at some point, I'm sure that we have facilities on our upcoming rotation at some point of people to come in and present, so we can do a more detailed dive into some of the facilities things when whatever month that occurs in as we move forward. So thank you. Next up is policy. We do have a second reading of policies. We had done the first reading, I think, back in November. And now this is the second reading. So those were attached to the agenda. And I'll read out the motion and then I'll entertain the motion. So the motion would be to approve the second reading adoption of the policies as presented, which include BEDH, which is a proposed update to the public participation at school committee meetings, which the update would allow the chair to give extra time for public comment if necessary. Policy KHC, which is proposed for deletion, which is distribution and posting of promotional material. This is already covered in policy KHB. KLG is a proposed update, relations with law enforcement authorities. These are updates to remove procedural items from the policy and align with recommendations from MASC, which is the Mass Association of School Committees. So I won't continue to read that. I'll give the acronym when it comes up next. Policy KLH, which is proposed for deletions, which was relations with fire and emergency preparedness authorities. This policy was procedural in nature, but it's also covered by policies EBCB, which is safety drills, and EBA, building and grounds inspections. Policy KLG, which is a proposed update, which is relations with planning and zoning authorities. And this is to update the policy to recommended wording given by MASC, and also some removal of some procedural items that were in that policy. KLK, it's a new policy, relations with local government authorities. And this is a new policy as per MASC recommendations as how we'll, that we will work with our local government authorities. And KLL, which is proposed for deletion, which was relations with state government authorities. This deletion was recommended by MASC because the current policy is really only procedural in nature. It's not a policy, it was procedure. So I would entertain a motion to Read it to approve the second reading and adoption of those policies as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mrs. Mattson. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second by Mr. Marks. Are there any questions or comments on any of those policies? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call. Mrs. Smith,
Aye.
Mrs. Ventura,
Aye.
Mr. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Mason,
Aye.
Mrs. Mattson,
Aye.
and Mrs. Hughes says aye. So those will be, those were approved for second reading and adoption. And we will get the policy guide updated accordingly. The next group is long-term planning. We're meeting, that group meets every other month. So there's no update from this month because it is the off month. So there'll be one next month. Templeton Elementary School Building Committee, Mr. Mason.
Done.
We're done.
All the paperwork's been submitted to the state, and I believe we're just waiting to hear back from them, but I think we're all done.
Great. So should I remove this from our update list then?
Yes, you may.
Excellent. Okay, well, that is great news. And I do want to say, you know, throw out a big thank you to Mr. Mason. You have been on that committee forever. And Dr. Casavant, you know, I know that you have been involved since, I think, before day one when you got here. I know Ms. Geister, Mrs. Varney, everybody's been involved in some way, shape, or form. So thank you to everyone here in the district and also out in the community in the town of Templeton for getting that project done and finalized. So it's a beautiful building and it's great for our kids. So thank you to everybody.
Mhm.
And then last up, diversity, equity, inclusion. Mr. Marks, if you have an update.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the rebranding earlier. The Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Group did meet earlier this month. We have a few new members, so we have some new ideas, and we're developing agenda items. And that's really it. Well, we do have a few additional meetings set up, and we'll continue to update as we meet. Okay.
Great, thank you. That's all for our subcommittees. We don't have any correspondence. I do want to announce our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, January 4th. If you remember, we had agreed at our last meeting to move the meeting to Tuesday, January 4th. One of the items on that agenda is an update from our facilitators on the Regional Agreement Amendment Committee. So for their schedules, we moved the meeting to Tuesday. And we'll also be focusing after that presentation on our budget. So that is our next meeting in 2022. There will be no executive session tonight, so that we're going to pass over that. And I will ask, does anybody have anything, Dr. Casavant, anything that you have thought of that we haven't reported out on before I entertain a motion? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
So move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Mason and a second from Mrs. Ventura. So, we have to do roll call. Mrs.
Yes, ma'am.
Smith,
Aye.
Mrs. Ventura,
Aye.
Mr. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Mason,
Aye.
Mrs. Mattson,
Aye.
and Mrs. Hughes says yes. So I would like to just say thank you to everybody for attending this evening and for those out in the community watching. Everyone have a wonderful holiday season. I know some of the holidays have already happened, so I'm wishing everybody, you know, joyous times for however you celebrate and some rest, some duly deserved rest over our holiday break that's upcoming or a December break, whatever we're calling it now. So good night, everybody, and thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.